Hey guys, Varric here. So in my last video, I basically tried to cover most of the basics before you step into a raid, like the basic covering hit and expertise, all your gemming, your reforging, your pets, uh, basic stuff like that. But I did forget something. It was the enchants. So real quick, I want to go over those before I kind of get into the main point of this video. So we'll start with helmet, with your helmet slot. Unfortunately, with Mist, they removed the helmet enchantment, so you can no longer enchant your helmet. So obviously, we're not going to cover that. Neck, there's no way to enchant your neck. Um, Shoulders, uh, depending on your profession, if you are inscription, you can actually get I believe it's a 500 agility um, enchantment on your shoulders. But if you're not, the best one is the 200 agility, 100 critical strike enchantment. Um, that's really the only two you're ever going to use for your shoulders. There's really nothing else that's any better than that. So that's kind of the baseline for your shoulder. That's the only ones you're going to want to use. Cape, uh, generally 180 critical strike is going to be the one you're going to use 99% of the time. There's really no agility enchantment that's greater than that. The only other one that you might use is the hit enchantment, but again, I wouldn't recommend that. You're better off trying to get hit through reforge or something of that nature. Doing an enchantment is a kind of a waste. You generally want to. It's a lot easier, like I said, to change reforge than it is enchants and gems and stuff like that. So stick with the 180 critical strike. Chest, without a doubt, is 80 tall stats. There's nothing else to use. That's pretty much the end of that. You always use a plus 80 to all stat enchants for that. Bracers, again, like the shoulders, if depending on your profession. Um, for me, I'm a leather worker, so I'm able to enchant my bracers with 500 agility. For all non-leather workers, you want to get the 180 agility enchantment. There's really nothing else that's greater. Like I said, that you still want to, if by all means, if you can get a decent agility enchantment, that's generally what you want to go for. Unfortunately, some of the slots don't have really good agility enchantments, so you kind of have to go with different ones. But for bracers, it's agility. Now gloves is one of the ones where you really have three options to do, and it kind of comes down to what the rest of your gear and your stats are looking like. Um, for the most part, you're probably going to use expertise for a while, the 170 expertise. Um, However, if you're over the expertise cap and no matter what else you do, you can't get away from, you might want to change that. And the other two options is haste or mastery. Now, honestly, 170 mastery versus 170 haste is almost non-noticeable. You'll never really can tell the difference. But if you're really trying to min-max, probably starting out until you pick up certain gear combinations, like I said in my other video, the new tier 15 trinkets along with the new tier 15 set bonuses, you might favor haste over the mastery. But for the most part, I would recommend sticking with mastery, especially if you're beast mastery or survival. Belt, anybody can get the extra belt buckle for the extra socket, so that's kind of a no-brainer. Um, Again, depending on your server, they may be kind of expensive, but expansion's been out for a while, so the new belt buckles should be pretty cheap. But if you know anybody that can make one, obviously go that route. Leg enchantments, again, is kind of like the chest. It's pretty much a no-brainer. You want the 285 and the 165 critical strike. Of course, if you're a leather worker, it's much cheaper for you to make it for yourself than it is to either one, get somebody else to make it, or two, buy it off the auction house. So if you know a leather worker, ask him to make you one. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the only leg enchantment you're going to use. Feet, there's a couple, but honestly, you really can't beat blurred speed, which is the 140 agility and minor speed increase. Now, by minor speed increase, it is kind of minor, but try using boots without it and then using with it, and you'll start to notice a difference. It can make just that much of a difference in a fight if you're just trying to get out of something. Again, it's not significant, but it is noticeable. So I highly recommend taking the blurred speed enchantment. The only way you're going to be able to enchant your rings is if you're an enchanter, and if you are, you want to use the 160 agility. Pretty nice enchantment, especially since there's no other way to get them for the rings. Of course, trinkets you can't really enchant. And weapon, without a doubt, is Lord Blastington's Scope of Doom, which is the 1800 agility proc on hit. So again, there's nothing that even competes with it. So bar none, that's the one you should be using. And that really pretty much does it for enchantments. Again, it's one enchantment by itself is not huge. There's some that if you're fixed or getting ready to replace a piece of gear, you might not use the epic version like the leg or the shoulder enchantments. But again, if you're getting a piece of gear and you know it's an upgrade and it might last a while, just go ahead and invest in the epic enchantments for that. So, but yeah, that about does it for the enchantments. So, the main thing I want to get done with this video is, let's say, like I said, you're taking care of your gear, you've got the right pet, all your enchantments and your gems and your reforge and all that stuff's taken care of. So, you've done the background, you've done all your homework, so to speak. You've taken care of your stats and you're ready to go. So, let's say you get invited to a raid, you get to the boss, you're getting ready to pull. Tank starts counting down, 3, 2, 1, bam, you're ready to go, right? Not quite. You still got a couple things you can do to help with your DPS before you start the fight. One of the most important things, especially in a progressive fight, if your guild is actively trying to kill a boss they haven't killed before, every little bit of DPS helps. Every little bit of buff that you can get helps. And the way we can do that is through flasks, food, and pots. So if you're doing a progressive fight, the only flask you're going to be using is the Flask of Spring Blossoms. It basically gives you 1,000 agility for 1 hour, and that even if you die, it's still there. That doesn't go away. Again, if you're progressing on a raid boss, especially if you're like heroic or if you're just trying to eke out that little bit extra DPS, you do not raid without a flask. In fact, any decent raiding guild will not even let you raid if you don't have flasks. Generally now they're not that expensive. The mats for them aren't that bad. I believe it's a golden lotus and 4 snow lilies per flask. Between the farming and the herbalism now, they're usually pretty easy to come by. If you got somebody that's an alchemist in your guild that can make them for you, obviously that could save you money if you decide to farm the mats. But even if you have to buy them off the auction house, it's a good investment. You definitely want to invest the money into it. Now for food, you have some options. If your guild is gracious enough to provide you like the great banquets, Pandarian banquets, that's fine. I believe those give you the 275, which is it basically gives you 275 of your greatest stat, which for us would be agility. So those are fine if you're kind of on farm bosses or you're really not trying to push your DPS out there. If you're just kind of just whatever, and somebody's if you have a bunch or you just want to use them and don't want to use your own food, that's fine. You can also make your food, especially cooking in this expansion has been pretty easy to do. It can take a little while, and some of the parts, especially making the banquets, can get kind of expensive. But again, they've made cooking very, very easy for this expansion. There really shouldn't be an excuse for you not to have your cooking leveled. If you consider, most guilds consider anybody that's kind of really progressively rating to have their professions and even like cooking and stuff maxed. It's just kind of expected. You always want to be able to pull your weight. You never want to be that guy where you're always begging for food or you're begging for flasks. So you don't want to be that guy. You want to be as self-sustaining as you can be. And having connections helps. If you know somebody that can make the food, maybe you haven't quite got there, or somebody that's an alchemist because you're not. It's always good to have to network. But again, if you can do it, try to do it yourself. So in this regard, cooking's pretty simple. Between the farm and dailies, and even if you have an alt that has herbalism or something like that, or if you have a fishing leveled up, that helps tremendously because that's probably going to be one of the harder ingredients to get for your food is the fish. Personally, I hate fishing, so I usually just go ahead and buy it off the auction house, or if somebody in the guild's gracious enough to fish for fishing for something else and they just happen to come across it, that's fine. But I can't get into fishing. It drives me crazy. So, but if you are going to make your own food, like the 275 food, you'd want to make the Valley Stir Fry. like I said, that's kind of for if you're just kind of goofing around, or um, somebody, like I said, is if they didn't put down a banquet, and you kind of want to be above the 250, because if anybody puts down anything else like banquet of the steamer or banquet of the pot, or one of the other ones that were going to buff the other stats like stamina or intellect, it's only going to give you a 250 buff, which again is fine for maybe like LFR, because a lot of times people put that down for LFR. But if you're progressive rating, you don't want to use 250 food. You want to at least use 275. Um, like I said, Valley Stir Fry ingredients are pretty easy to come by. I believe it's reef octopus and wildfowl breast, which are pretty easy to farm. So the ingredients are really not that tough. Now, if you're pushing like heroic content and you're trying to squeeze every little bit of DPS out, your go-to food is going to be your sea mist rice noodles, which give you 300 agility. Now, this one's a little harder to make. Again, for me, it's mainly because of the fish. I think it's the tiger gourami. But it also has the one ingredient called the rice flour, which you can only buy with Iron Paw tokens. So if you do plenty of dailies, if you have the cooking apprentice, you can also get some Iron Paw tokens that way. But you can buy the stuff off the auction. It can get expensive. That's really the only downside to it, is it can be very expensive to make, because it's the other one is turtle meat. Although turtle meat usually shouldn't be that expensive, but it can be depending on your server. Again, you can farm all the ingredients yourself. I did. I think right now I'm well over 400 pieces of 300 food in my bank. But I've been doing it since the expansion launch. So I wanted to kind of stock up, because I didn't know how much of this food I was going to use. Because some nights, on boss attempts, you may put it 20, 30 attempts, depending on how long you raid, and I can easily burn through a stack of food. So if you raid more than 2 or 3 nights a week, you're going to go through that stuff really fast. So it's a good idea to kind of stock up prior to, if you think you're going to start raiding, or if you're leveling or whatnot, try to get the ingredients to go. There is another food you can make. I think it's sauteed carrots. I forget the exact name, but it's 250 agility. But and I think the ingredients on that's pretty simple. But again, that's only if you're just kind of messing around. Maybe you just got to a boss and you don't want to waste your 300 food. That's fine too. That's perfectly understandable. If you're just putting in a few attempts and you're not getting anywhere in the first few attempts, then yeah, don't waste your 300 agility food. But once you've put in some attempts and you're starting to make a little headway, then it's time to start burning your 300 agility food. That's when you want to just go all out. So keep that in mind. Lastly is your pots. There's a little trick, and I'm sure, again, most, any type of progressive rating hunter would probably already know this, but generally if you use a pot in a fight, you can only use that pot one time. Like if you start combat, if the tank pulls the boss, 10-15 seconds into the fight, you use a pot, then that's it. You only get to use that one. However, if you do what they call pre-potting, and you use this pot before you enter combat, before the boss pulls, before anybody does any damage or whatever, what happens is you'll use the pot and you'll get the benefit of it, and then about, I think it's 30 to 40 seconds later, the pot will actually come off cooldown and you're able to use a second pot. So basically you get to use 2 pots per fight, which is pretty significant, because it's basically 4,000 agility for 25 seconds. That's nice. That's basically your bottle of infinite stars proccing for 25 full seconds. That's nice. It's especially good because if you pre-pot, that basically means when you blow all your cooldowns, you're getting that added 4,000 agility, and then if the fight is long enough, you're also getting 4,000 more agility. So basically, instead of having just 4,000 agility during the fight, you're now getting 8,000 agility for 50 seconds. So that's pretty significant. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes, and you'd also be surprised how many hunters don't do that. So I just want to make that clear that it's a little trick you can use, and like I said, if you're just trying to squeeze out any ounce of DPS, that's a good trick to have. The ingredients for it aren't too bad. I believe the ingredients are something like green tea leaves, and I think snow lilies. But for the most part, it's not real expensive. But again, if you do have any type of alchemist or somebody in your guild that can make them for cheap, then you can go that route. If you have an alt that has herbalism, green tea leaves are everywhere, all over the place. Also, if you go into Kuline Summit, there's snow lilies all over the place. It really wouldn't take you that long to farm enough mats to make probably 100 pots within an hour, probably less than an hour. So again, it's really important to use these in conjunction. So basically, between the food, your flask, and your pot, at least at the start of the fight for 25 seconds, you're looking at max at 5,300 added agility. That is a lot of agility, and it makes a significant impact on your damage when you pop all that stuff, especially at the beginning of a fight. So it's something that you really want to try to achieve. You definitely want to try to get all your gear situated. Make sure you're using the right pets. You bring the right buffs to the raid for your pets. You're glyphed right, your talents are right. But little things like pots and flasks and food can also make a big difference. Sometimes it's easy to miss though. Now again, depending on how much you raid and how much you might wipe or whatever, it can get expensive. Like raiding itself is expensive, although it's nothing near the way it used to be. Back in even the Burning Crusade, it was very expensive to raid. Between repairs, the food, the flasks, all that stuff. Back in the day, it was a lot harder to make. The ingredients were pretty expensive, and it just was a real pain. But now there's kind of really no excuse. They've pretty much made everything pretty easy to come by. So I highly recommend you take the time and the effort, and even if it is the money, because let's be honest, to make gold in WoW, it doesn't take that much. I'm not a gold guru. I don't spend hours a day farming or anything like that, and it's not that hard. It really isn't. So, but yeah, I want to keep this video kind of short because obviously I think I made my first one a little too long for my first video. But again, I'm new at this. I'm new at making videos, so I just ask you guys to be patient. Hopefully, as I go along, things will improve. My video editing and the quality of the videos, that type of stuff. But again, if there's anything that you don't like, or if there's anything you want to see changed, just leave a comment. Again, if I don't know if it's wrong or it's messed up, then I won't be able to fix it. So your input is valuable because I'm just starting out. I'm new at this. If you make videos or you're used to editing or something like that, please by all means leave some tips or send me a message or something. I'm not gonna cry in a corner if somebody criticizes the video. I have no problem with somebody pointing out mistakes or things I could change. So I'm thinking I'm gonna cut it off here though. But again, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm gonna try to make this somewhat regular. I want to keep it rolling. There's a few more things I want to kind of talk about before I get to a certain point with these videos. Again, like I said in my original video, I just wanted to kind of lay a foundation to start kind of building on that. I believe for the next video, I'm going to try to concentrate on survival. Because like I said, now we've got all our gear situated. We've we're got all that stuff done. Now we're we're flasked, we're food, we're ready to roll. We're ready to actually start putting boots to asses, as they say, on the boss. You're ready to go in. So with that said, I'm gonna start working on make a video working on the actual rotations and cooldown usage and stuff like that for survival, and then I'll probably do one for Beast Mastery as well. And like I said in the first video, I haven't played marksmanship in a long time, so I probably won't do a marksmanship video unless somebody really wants me to, and then I might respec into it and give it a try, maybe just for my own sake because I haven't done it. But that's the plan for right now. But again, if there's something else you want to see me make, concentrate on something else or elaborate on something I've already done, just leave a comment. But that's going to do it. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you later.